Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, it's the Monday, December 29th, 2025 episode of the Marco Dre Show. I can't believe we're in our final week of 2025. The year flew by, it seems. Thanks everyone for tuning in today's show to hear all the relevant groundbreaking news here in America and around the world, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Don't forget to follow the show wherever you might get your podcast, available now on all streaming apps. Let's get down to brass tacks for the best hour of radio, uncensored and ready to go. You know, on Friday's broadcast, I had an article about an elderly woman in Seattle that I really want to dive into today because it shows you how we've fallen as a society through and through. And if this doesn't make you sick to your stomach, if it doesn't make your blood boil, I'm not sure what will. This is in Fox News. Let's take a look right at it right now. This is disgusting. It says, horrific video captures repeat offender allegedly attacking 75-year-old woman, gouging her eye with spiked stick. And they have a picture of this here in the article on Fox News. And actually, I have a little clip of the video from it, what appears to be traffic cameras. They don't show you the exact moment it strikes this one, but it's very, very disturbing. But it says her newly released video has captured the horrifying moment. A man wielding a wooden stick, right? This guy's just walking down the street. And it's got several different metal screws attached to it, as if someone just sat there with a hammer and started hitting him into the wood. And it says here, he allegedly brutally attacked an elderly woman at a random traffic stop early in December. Now, authorities have described the offender as a violent person. Oh, no kidding, right? This guy's got a rap sheet longer than my arm. Walking down the street, history of including random assaults on several different people. It says allegedly, we've got video footage of it, allegedly. But it says allegedly swung the weapon like a bat and struck the unsuspecting 75-year-old woman in the face. The woman's name is Jeanette Markin. And she was left with a laceration that was bleeding heavily and is expected to permanently lose vision in one eye. This is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Happened right outside the Kings County Courthouse in downtown Seattle. Now, the suspect, Fail P, whatever kind of name that is, I don't know, was arrested shortly thereafter. Yeah, held on a $1 million bail charged with first-degree assault. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, if you look at this guy's past, I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, there's so many different things that this guy has done. He's even had some stabbing convictions back in 2011. Yep, second-degree stabbing. So according to court documents, P continued to rack up assaults, including one misdemeanor conviction in 2020, 4 misdemeanor convictions in 2023, and another misdemeanor conviction for assault in 2024. So again, it's just this recidivism to commit crimes. And yet they're back on the streets time and time again. Why are they not in jail? It says here in 2025, he was booked 8 times for a wide range of incidents, including, again, assault, indecent exposure, God only knows what that entails, drug use, property destruction, unlawful use of a weapon, and malicious mischief, whatever the hell that might be. Yet there he is, on the streets to beat up an elderly old woman, striking her in the face. And now she has no vision in her right eye. Now, I bring this up to you. Again, the rap sheet this guy has, it's long, folks. Yet time and time again, these people are left on the streets to do more harm to people. How many more times are we going to see a black on white crime, particularly black men on elderly white women or white women in general in this country? without us doing anything about it. Now, one could argue, well, Gervais, come on, it's a democratic state, democratic city. They get what they voted for. Well, no, I'm sorry. A woman doesn't need to be struck in the face to say, hey, she deserved it. When are we going to stand up to this nonsense and say enough is enough here? We're taking these people off the streets. If they refuse mental help, well, then we're going to throw them in jail. They don't belong on the streets attacking innocent people. What sane city can survive this way? I'll give you a hint. None. Absolutely none. And now this woman had to spend, I guess, Christmas in this awful situation. Her son was equally upset. But, what does this say about us as a society? That a woman cannot walk down the street in an American city without being attacked brutally. Unprovoked, too, by the way. She's just standing there at the last moment. She turns to see him striking the club right at her face. And he just walks away. No big deal. Again, he's used to it. I think the sicker part about all this that I see in this article is that they knew exactly who this guy was when the police showed up. They knew exactly who he was. I mean, this is just awful. Absolutely awful. One officer saying he's a regular. He usually punches. I guess he decided to escalate from his usual. Well, no kidding, moron. No kidding. You put a lunatic on the street, let him do whatever the hell he wants? There's no repercussions? There's no consequences? Of course he's going to keep doing it. The hell does he give a damn? Look at him. Look at this piece of human excrement. I can't even believe this right now. Now, her son was obviously upset by this entire thing, saying her vision in her right eye was gone and she was losing too much blood. At the hospital, we learned she had multiple fractures in her face, skull and nose. Again, he clubs her right in the side of the face. He says, and the damage to her right eye was permanent. She will never see from that again. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable that we let this happen in our cities. When are people going to wake up and realize these Democrats don't give a damn about them? When are people going to realize this? What, does it have to happen to you? Your family member? Where are the men of Seattle, by the way? Where are the men in Washington? That this could happen and people go about their business like it's no big deal. Something has got to change in this country. It's got to change soon. We cannot continue to have this continue to go on. Time and time again, this is what I see. And you see it because I report it to you. This isn't just one exclusive incident. This is happening all over the country. And of course, no one's talking about a hate crime, are they? No one said a damn thing. This could not be a hate crime. That it's a black man blinding a white elderly woman. Now, of course, it was in reverse. We'd hear ad nauseum how, America's a hateful place. Obviously, the attackers are white supremacists, a neo-Nazi, Hitler incarnate. But here we just hear, well, he's the usual, he punches people time and time again, we can't really hold him because, it'd be racist to hold him in jail, of course, right? A street vagrant, street trash like this. Well, but this is what we're seeing. Now, do you think if the roles were reversed, we wouldn't hear the end of it? We'd be told about our evil sins as a nation. Of course, as a white nation. That's what it would come down to. But in these situations, who was the guy in, I think it was Wisconsin, if I'm not, forgive me if I mess up the state that it was in, where the black kid stabbed the white guy in the heart because he was sitting in their space. And he got angry that he was asked to leave, so he pulled out a knife and stabbed the kid in the heart. You don't hear anything about that case, do we? It was never called a hate crime. Nobody asked the black community to do better. No, we just moved on with our way, right? And again, all these situations. The Irina Zaruka case, same thing. Was it ever called a hate crime? I don't think, to my knowledge, it never was. Yet every single time, if it's a white on black crime, right? We never hear the end of it. We're just not good enough as whites. We got to do more. For the minorities in this country. Yeah, when it happens to whites, as it's happening constantly now, we hear nothing about this. Nothing about how the Democrats need to do better running these cities? Never, never, never. And by the way, Bruce Horrell, the Dunce mayor, who's on his way out, had nothing to say about this. Nothing. No, he had no comments for his fellow Seattle peoples. What do you call a Seattle person? What's the name for that? I don't even know. I don't even care. But this is no good, folks. This has got to change. And by the way, men, fathers, sons, husbands, you need to know where your women are, where they're going. And again, quite possibly even escort them, because you can't let people go out like this in these areas anymore. The police aren't going to do a damn thing about it. You've got to be there to, again, know where you are, assess the environment in which you are. So if you see somebody walking down the street with a 2x4 swinging it around and has nails coming out of it, you might want to leave. You might want to get out of the way. And you might have to be ready to defend yourself. But I mean, this is just happening time and time and time again. And it seems to be not getting any better. So again, if you're in these blue states, in these blue cities, you've got to watch your surroundings. You got to know where you are. If you see someone that looks dangerous or disheveled or homeless that's approaching you with an object, you might want to get out of the way. And I say this to you not to scare you, but I say it so you can be prepared. Because it's just lawless in a lot of these blue cities, especially, again, blue cities in these blue states. They don't do a damn thing about these criminals that are ruling the streets. Now, likewise, in lawless states like Minnesota, what we're seeing like in this article from the Gateway Pundit, Tim Walz calls journalist Nick Shirley a white supremacist for reporting on the millions of dollars stolen by a Somali daycare fraud. Not what can he do to help and prevent this. It's always, pass the buck on to somebody else. Now, Nick Shirley, he's this independent journalist. He's done some great work with going to Portland, for example. He's done good work going to Chicago. He's interviewed gang members. He's, tracked Antifa, the Antifa trash that's in Portland, destroying that city. Again, are we shocked? Blue cities, blue states, harboring criminals. No kidding. But he actually exposed in Minnesota now, right? Now there's millions of, this took him one day too, by the way, and he was able to figure this out. Millions of dollars of fraud involving a Somali daycare center inside Minneapolis. Now, Shirley shared a clip of his investigation, including footage of the door being slammed in his face when he asked a Minnesota child care center that claims to care for 102 children, which was completely empty. He says, we uncovered $110 million in one day. That's just him going there in one day. Imagine if you actually did your job and wanted to do something, what you could actually find there. Now, we're told the fraud in just this one category, this child care scam, racks up to about $9 billion in fraud from the state itself. And again, what has Tim Walz done about it? Not a damn thing. In fact, he actually upped it a couple of years ago, the amount of money going to this big scam. And yet nobody figured this out? Where's Attorney General Keith Ellison? Well, folks, I think you know where the money's going. It's going back to them. They're getting kickbacks from this, probably, is what I can imagine from it. And by the way, the dunce Tim Walz just recently signed into law that you can, as a citizen, if you are on election day, you can bring 8 people with you that you vouch for, and they can instantly vote that day. Isn't that wonderful? In Minneapolis, in Minnesota? Wonderful, wonderful. You've never seen anything like this before. It's disgusting. So there, GOP whip Tom Eber lashed out at Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on X, demanding some answers. Says $4 million of hard-earned tax dollars going to an education center that can't even spell learning correctly. Care to explain this one, Tim Walz? No, of course he can't. They can only call you white supremacist. That's it. Look at what he wrote here. It says, Walz said of the investigation, this is what happens when the scapegoat, and this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy. So in other words, if you're a black Somali, maybe an immigrant, maybe an illegal alien, we don't know, you just have to call someone a white supremacist. The problem will go away. We don't have to actually look at the problem. Now, he's claimed that he aggressively is going after these people. Have you seen anyone arrested in this scam? $9 billion worth? Has anyone gone down for this? Look who he's backing right now. He's not outraged that the state has pissed away $9 billion. He's more mad at Nick Shirley for exposing the case. Wouldn't he align with Nick Shirley? Wouldn't he say Nick Shirley's done some great work in just a matter of one day? He's not even an investigative journalist. Well, he is an investigative journalist. He's not an investigator, though. And he's just gone out there in one day and found $110 million worth of fraud. So they're using these businesses. Again, many of these locations apparently are simply empty. They don't offer any services. And if you look at some of these things, some of these places don't even have addresses. If you look at their business sheets, the business records, they don't even have addresses where they're providing these so-called child care services. Now, right now, the federal government's looking into it now. Not that I hold my breath that they're going to do anything about it. Look how awful Pam Body's been on everything from January 6th, letting that case run out. Very soon, that's going to be reaching the statute of limitations. You look at other things, COVID, nothing's been done. Epstein, nothing's been done. Any of these cases, going after President Trump, hiring Jackass Smith to go after him, nothing has been done. No one has gone down. And the transparency for it is even worse, if you ask me, in my own opinion. No, we're supposed to forget Epstein, right? No, forget about Epstein. Don't worry about him. Just sweep it under the rug. Epstein, he's dead, just lays in jail. Just forget about it. Forget about it. You ran on transparency, not forget about it. Or that it's a Democratic hoax. Is this another Democratic hoax? When are we going to hold these people accountable? When are we going to hold Tim Walz accountable? When are we going to hold State Attorney General Keith Ellison accountable? And the people that did this accountable? Because again, that goes back to our taxpayer dollars. And again, it should upset you. It should. That these things are happening and nothing seems to be happening as a result of this. Look at this. More than $9 billion stolen in taxpayer money. Renewed scrutiny is also focusing on how much of the billion stolen has gone directly into the hands of the Al-Shabaab terrorists in Somalia. So in other words, they're getting this money, this vast amount of money, and they're sending it abroad. You try to make that make sense. Because it's absolutely disgusting. Now, I've been told, and this is what Fox News is reporting right now, that Trump is actually administering deportations of Somalis in these hotbeds like we see in Dearborn, Michigan, Minnesota, among other places. Folks, we can't live like this. We can't live like this. Look at the fraud that we're seeing with this. Now, we're miffed about the $9 billion in Minnesota, and one should be. What about the $24 billion fraud that Gavin Newsom's got going with the homeless scam that he's running out there in California? Has anyone got any type of accountability on that? Is anyone looking into that? Well, of course, the answer is probably no. We hear about this and nothing ever happens. That's the big problem as well. So Tim Walz is in trouble. Keith Ellison in lots of trouble. And especially if there's a paper trail where this money's going to them, there's going to be a lot more trouble as well for them. Can you imagine this guy almost became our vice president? It just shows you the low-caliber candidates for the Democratic Party, I'd have to say. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at this. And again, this goes back to what I was talking to you during our weekly economic report on Friday. So the Wall Street Journal says the economic divide between big and small companies is growing. What did I tell you? I told you this. I told you the AI bust that's going to happen in America is going to happen in 2026. I told you China and India will become more independent and more self-sufficient as time goes on. And I told you whoever leads AI will lead the world. I told you these things. And nobody seems to be paying any attention, though. Yep, it's been a good year, though, for most American biggest companies, right? Surging profits, enthusiasm for artificial intelligence, propelling stocks to record highs. Well, because everyone's investing in it, especially the government is investing in it. But for small businesses, the opposite is happening right now. Many of these small businesses, they're unable to withstand the economic headwinds as easily as their larger counterparts, as one could imagine, right? They don't have the capital to do so. Then you add in years of inflation, increasingly cautious consumers, and of course the tariffs that Trump decides when he wakes up what the hell this is going to be. So these businesses are weighing on earnings and prompting cutbacks as well as a result of the economic whirlwind that we seem to find ourselves in. Now, it says here over the past 6 months, private firms with fewer than 50 workers have steadily shed jobs, according to payroll processor ADP, cutting some 120,000 jobs in the month of November alone. Mid-size and especially large firms have continued to add jobs, though. Okay. Now, again, small businesses, that would be any business that has roughly 500 workers or less working for that business. That's considered a small business, just so we're all clear on this. Now, the growing divide between fortunes of small businesses and large businesses mirror the divide that has emerged over the past year between low-income Americans and their high-income counterparts. Remember I told you? The consumer spending, as of late, was the top 10% of income earners makes up half of all the new spending in America. They're not even hiding it anymore. And again, top 10%, it depends what state you're in, of course. But, if you're in a state like California, you have to make over $350,000 to be considered in the top 10% in that state. Now, again, by state it varies, but roughly as an average, you need to be making over $250,000 a year. Probably a little bit more now, thanks to inflation. But again, the wealthy consumers keep the economy humming. No kidding. No kidding. Now, the split among categories of consumers is exacerbating, according to the Federal Reserve's latest compilation of economic antidotes from country known as the Beige Book. It says overall consumer spending declined further, while higher-end retail spending remained resilient. Again, they've got the capital, they've got the investments, they've got the stocks, they can take out the big loans, they can pay their workers more money, they can attract more business, right? They can expand better. That is not always true of small businesses, of course. So there's obviously big problems with this. The other problem with it, of course, is that the small businesses in America employ nearly half of the American workforce. They represent more than 40% of the overall gross domestic product right here in the United States. But these small business profits are faltering right now in 2025, going into 2026. And they also found that earnings are slightly lower than they were a year ago. So the trend is continuing on. We're losing the ability to have more small businesses. And that is, a major problem, as one could imagine. Again, you look, too, at the Wall Street mergers that are taking place. The bigs grow, they get bigger. And you're seeing Main Street left to fend for itself, if it can even fend for itself. Yep, this is what's going on right now, folks. This is what's going on right now. And again, this all began under COVID. I told you this before. This all began under COVID, right? Started with the 2 weeks to slow the spread, with the virus that had a 99.9997% survival rate. Even with those with, vulnerabilities and comorbidities had a 94% survival rate. But yet you were told to lock down, close your business, sit in your home for 2 weeks, don't do anything, don't go out. I'll tell you who's essential and who's not, right? That's what Gavin Newsom, my governor at the time, said. He'll decide who's essential. And were small businesses essential? Of course not. Of course they weren't. And so we saw there the massive transfer of wealth during COVID. That's when it all began, right? And of course they used it as a beta test to see who's going to comply with such idiotic things like stand 6 feet apart, lock down forever. Who's going to do that? And who's going to stand up and say, you know what, I need to have my livelihood. I'm not going to do this. Wear the mask, get the shot, don't take ivermectin, which again is a proven supplement that'll help actually stop the spread of, these viruses. Don't do any of that. In fact, don't even listen to it. We'll shut down any type of discourse on Meta or Facebook. We'll close it down. We'll, flag it. You'll be shadow banned, and so on and so forth. Right? So we have Trump welcoming the, 2 weeks to slow the spread nonsense. And then he welcomed Fauci. right? Little Tony Fauci. Gave him the ability to run roughshod over the government, ruin the economy, which again at the time was very good, by the way. I'll just sell it to you that way. The economy was booming at that point. Nothing could stop Trump in 2020. So how could he not see this? How could he not see this nonsense that was unfolding right in front of his eyes? One wonders. Again, he still has to answer for it. By the way, is Pam Bondi looking at anything Fauci did? Or Barbara, what was her name? Bricks or Burks or whatever the hell her stupid name was, the scarf lady. Or Francis Collins, who ran the NIH. Did anything happen to these people? These liars? Anyone at the CDC? Anyone go down? After they ruin the economy, ruin your livelihood? Likely led to more deaths? Because again, people weren't going to the hospitals as much? Did anyone go down for this? The answer is no. Again, by June 2021, listen to this. Every state lost a quarter of their small businesses. So in the matter of really just over a year, going from March of 2020 to June of 2021, we lost a quarter of all small businesses in America, in each and every state. That is a massive transfer of wealth, of course. And again, in the most tyrannical driven states, like Newsom's California, upwards of 40% of small businesses shut down. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. That this could actually happen, of course. But this is the plan. The bigs get bigger, the small people get wiped out. That's what it comes down to. And what we see is following with the dollar, your purchasing power, right now is still very, very low. That's why you're seeing gold and silver prices beginning to spike up, even more so right now. And you're going to see that trend continue going into 2026. That's what I believe is going to happen. But that's indicative of the dollar. And of course, the mass printing of currency based in nothing, more bills chasing the same amount of goods or less goods, decreases your purchasing power, folks. So again, it's all the way to confiscate your wealth and again, your ability to live freely. That's what it comes down to. Moneywise has a good article too I'm going to share with you. It says here that AI tech has made billionaires even richer this year. Here's how much. Look at this. Again, I told you they're going to invest in AI. Right? It's the new big thing. People want to get in out of this. They want to get in ahead of time before it starts to take off. And again, it's made a lot of people much richer, as one could expect. Again, that's going to be what leads the future. It says here that more than 50 individuals involved in the AI sector became billionaires this year, is what Forbes has stated on Thursday of last week. Many of these people are entrepreneurs involved in startups, such as the 7 co-founders of Anthropic, which has nearly tripled its valuation in less than a year. Again, it's all propped up by the government. It's all propped up by the illusion that, again, this company is going to do something. What do they actually produce, though? That's the big thing. What are they producing? Nothing. Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. And again, the bigs. Look at here. There's a whole section on Elon Musk here. It says here that he has his status as the world's richest individual this year, nearly doubling his net worth, according to Bloomberg. Out of 500 billionaires tracked by Bloomberg, his wealth alone rose the most in 2025 by $213 billion. Can you believe that? Just his wealth is growing from whatever it was to $213 billion more this year. Now, one could argue a lot of it's coming from SpaceX and what have you. Tesla stocks are up right now, just slightly. But there he goes. It says his wealth also rose based on his ownership of XAI, whatever the hell that is. His AI startup that founded 2 years ago. That is reportedly in talks to raise funds at $230 billion in valuation. Look at this. SpaceX said the company could go public next year at a valuation of as much as $1.5 trillion. Amazing, isn't it? Then you look at the Google schmucks, Larry Page, Sergey Brin. Look at this. Alphabet was the next biggest gainer in 2025, adding $102 billion and $92.8 billion to their respective fortunes as of Thursday. Yep. And again, it's so funny, too, because Google is free. That's what most people don't get. Google is free. Anyone can use Google. How do they make their money? Well, people advertise with Google. Any school district you see, by the way, Your kid's email address at school is a Google email address, so you got a lot of people on it. And what they do is they also provide models where you can pay to get more services. So if you want to have, certain features, they require a subscription or a payment, yearly payment, monthly payment, whatever it might be. And these school districts take that money and invest in it. Again, it's happening all over the country. Now, I myself don't use Google at all. I will not use Google. But here's the other way they make a lot of money. It's data monetization. The company will collect user data. That means what you search for, what you do, anything you pay for, and improve their algorithms and often sell this data to advertisers or data brokers, and they make a hell of a lot of money. Again, they all do this. Facebook, same thing. Facebook's free to use, right? But they can advertise, they can open up this platform, they can figure out ways to, again, change algorithms, sell your data, make a lot of money. And Zuckerberg is one of the most wealthiest people in America today on a platform that is absolutely free to use. Make sense? Yep. And again, you can also have AI models for free business. Businesses often pay for customized solutions, things of that nature, all these things. And so they get richer off this. And again, it's a world market. Understand that as well. It's not just mutually exclusive to America. Look at this. Larry Ellison's net worth grew by $59.2 billion to $251 billion this year. Unbelievable. Look, there you go. There you go. NVIDIA, I told you, all these companies are doing great. Again, you're seeing the government hype it up. You're seeing people invest, and as the next big thing, and these people are making out very, very well, along with their stakeholders. So I guess that's really, really good for them. All right, moving on. The Hill. Trump says U.S. hit facility in Venezuela very, very hard. Unbelievable here, as this whole issue goes on as well. I told you before, I don't understand what's happening in Venezuela. And by that, I mean why we're there, why we're doing this. We're told this is because of drugs. Have we ever gone into a country because of drugs, folks? The answer to that is we haven't. But he said during a recent radio interview that the U.S. knocked out a big facility in Venezuela as the administration continues to turn up its pressure against President Nicolas Maduro. Here's the thing. They want to get rid of Maduro. They want to take the assets in the country, right? The oil for sure, the gold, the other resources they have in the country. And they want to confiscate it. And they want to install this Karina Machado woman who will let them do whatever the hell they want so long as she's the president. And probably get kickbacks as well. That's how it usually works. But this whole issue with what we're doing in Venezuela, we're talking about a land invasion now? Now, he was asked about Venezuela on Friday during this appearance on Katz and Cosby. I've never heard of it. Apparently, it's on WABC in New York. And Trump lauded that the U.S. military's attacks against purported drug smuggling vessels in the region, and then he added that the U.S. forces hit a facility 2 days earlier. So, Christmas Eve, I'm guessing, we struck a facility inside Venezuela? He wanted to say we just knocked it out. I don't know if any of you read that or so. I didn't hear about this. Again, nice and hush-hush over the Christmas break, right? Nobody's really paying attention to the news as much. All the big hosts, they're on vacation, as one could imagine, so no one's really talking about this. Says they have a big plant or big facility where they send the ships come from. Okay, Donnie, okay. The ships come from these places. They're like ports almost, And 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. We hit them very hard. What? Hit them hard for what? Now, again, it's unclear whether where the facility is located, how the attack was carried out, what the damage was, or if there were any casualties. But both the Pentagon and U.S. Southern Command referred to the Hill to the White House when asked about Trump's remarks. The Hill reached out for comments to the White House, and the U.S. officials told the New York Crimes that the drug facility in Venezuela had been eliminated, but did not provide any additional details. So we hit a drug facility? And this is supposed to what, take Maduro down? What kind of, is it prescription drugs? illegal drugs, illicit drugs? What's going on here? But the Venezuelan government did not comment on the alleged attack. Okay, so things are heating up, folks. I told you it's going to continue to get worse. We will invade Venezuela at some point. It's going to happen. Every step we're taking here is an act of war. And it will continue to keep getting worse and worse. I don't know how successful we'll be as a result of this. And again, I'm not sure why the UN hasn't stepped in and said what we're doing is completely illegal. The whole idea of a blockade around a country is an act of war. So we initially are engaged in announcing that we're going to war with Venezuela. It's an act of war by all measures. And again, we talked about these airstrikes not too long ago. I told you before, they're all illegal. Venezuela is, 2,000 miles away from us? What national security risk do they pose to us? And it's been done under the guise of drugs, running drugs to the United States. I will say this to you. I've said it to you before. I will say it again till I'm blue in the face. The vast amount of drugs that leave Venezuela, I think it's pretty much none of them come to the United States. They go elsewhere. They go to Trinidad. Then they go to someplace else. Then they go to West Africa. Then they go to Europe. They don't come to the United States. They just don't. And if we're so focused on stopping drugs from entering the United States, why aren't we going to war with Mexico? The largest quantities of drugs of all kinds come from Mexico. That's why we call them the Mexican drug cartels that run them in the United States. And they use people inside the United States to sell these drugs. Just so we're all clear on that. Yet, have we done anything to Mexico? Have we declared war in Mexico? Are we putting any blockades around Mexican ships in the Gulf of America? I don't think so. How about in the Eastern Pacific? No, none. Not that I've heard of. It's a very troubling thing what we're seeing right now when we see that over 105 people have been now killed, labeling them as narco-terrorists, And again, in this effort to curb the illicit flow of drugs, Venezuela doesn't even come in the top 10 of drugs. And by the way, you could go look at the DEA's website. They'll say the same thing to you. They'll say the exact same thing. None of this is coming from Venezuela. Now, it acts as a transit hub for other nations to ship the drugs, but they're not sending the drugs from Venezuela to the United States, and certainly not the Venezuelan government, just so we're all clear on this. All right, let's talk about, again, the legality here. There is none. There is none. By the way, again, the due process has to exist in anything that we do in the world. We're bound by international law as well, but even our U.S. Constitution does not allow us to just go kill people. Doesn't matter if they're in the United States or outside the United States. We as a government cannot just go out and start doing this. So if there's anyone suspected of running drugs in the United States, that person is to be arrested, of course, unless there's a violent exchange, of course, and then obviously we would defend ourselves, and rightfully so. But we can't just go around blowing up boats saying, you know what, this boat's full of, narco-terrorist drugs, right? Then you have the dunce, Pete Hegseth, talking about how, the intel told us so therefore we did it. What, the intel's never been wrong? And the whole issue with the whole September 10th, the re-attack of the survivors on the water clinging to wreckage and killing them, another act against the, international law. Violates the War Crimes Act of 1996 in the United States. But I want to read this to you, by the way. I was listening to John Kiriakou. He was on with Piers Morgan over the weekend. And he said that a foot in a boot, you heard me right, a foot in a boot, washed up on the shore in Trinidad and Tobago. And it was identified as the foot and boot of a Trinidadian fisherman. And now the family wants answers because of this. Now, folks, just so we're all clear on this, Venezuela has not anything to do with Trinidad. So did we blow up a Trinidadian boat? Kill innocent fishermen on it? And yet we're being told these are narco-terrorists. This is a complete illegal act. It needs to stop. Where is the Supreme Court? Where the hell is Congress on this? I didn't vote to be murdering people without any type of due process. Did you? And for those of you that think, hey, this is okay. Yeah, they're drug dealers. Who the hell do I care? Well, again, I just want to remind you, we're a nation of laws. Are we not? Should police come into someone's home and just start shooting because, hey, you're a suspected drug dealer? How would you like that? I don't think you would. So why would anyone else in the world want that too? We stole an oil tanker that was bound for China with paid Chinese oil on it. We've seized the oil. We've seen this is a ship. This is piracy. In the fullest extent of the terminology here. Piracy is what we're seeing right now. I don't understand this. I don't know why the Trump administration is doing this, but it is illegal. And I say that to you as a conservative who voted for President Trump. This is not good. Nobody should want this. No one should be championing this. We talk about lawlessness in democratic cities. What the hell? What are we doing in the Caribbean doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Whoever is advising Trump is obviously not doing him any favors, of course. But listen to this. This was Trump speaking about this again. And he just talks about it casually like it's no big deal, when it's really an admission to guilt. Take a listen.
What are we going to do with the oil that we have?
Going to do with what?
The oil that has been seized. The United States seized 1.9 million barrels of oil on December 10th.
We're going to keep it. We're keeping it.
Where's it going? Are we going to sell it or put it in the strategic?
Maybe
oil
we'll sell it. Maybe we'll keep it. Maybe we'll use it in the strategic reserves. We're keeping it. We're keeping the ships also.
Okay. So we're stealing a ship. We're stealing oil that was paid for by China on its way to China. And we're going to keep that oil and put it in our reserves and sell it, maybe? I mean, talk about admission to guilt. Absolutely. I mean, this is disgusting. Again, China buys up our debt. Is that going to look good for us? Should they decide to slow that process down? That won't be good for them or for us, by the way, if that should happen. What is Scott Bessent going to do when he wants to sell $3 trillion worth of debt to China this upcoming year? What's he going to do? Hey, we're going to steal your oil whenever we damn well please. By the way, we're going to sell it on our markets. 1.9 million barrels of oil. We'll put it in our reserves. Thank you for paying for that, by the way. And we're going to take a Venezuelan ship or a Chinese ship or whoever ship it is. I don't know. And we're going to keep that too. Because our Navy can put out, 1.2 ships a month? This is not good, folks. This is really, really not good. Again, Pete Hegseth, again, another one who's advocating for these strikes to happen. And again, using the term narco boats, narco boat strikes, narco terrorist means nothing. Absolutely nothing. They can make whatever word they want. Means absolutely nothing. Listen to him trying to explain himself here. And again, he knows he's in hot water here. If this story continues to break. Listen to him try to defend himself.
But you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike? You personally?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters.
He wrote a whole book on it? What the hell's that supposed to mean? Wrote a book on it. Who the hell read it? Anybody? If you wrote a book on this, you should know it's illegal to attack a boat that is not provoking any type of violence towards you when you're not in a war with a country. And if someone has done something illegal, you detain the boat, you arrest the people on the boat, you search the boat. If you find the contraband on the boat, you obviously would use that to charge these people. But he even admitted, we go through all this process. We need to just do this quicker. Now, I'm sorry, you don't just go out and kill people, folks. That's just not right. It's not right. And it's not legal in any way. International law, Geneva Convention laws, War Crimes Act laws. Again, we were supposed to go and save those two people that were clinging to wreckage. I know it sounds odd to you, but that's international law. When someone is out of the fight, when someone can no longer pose any type of threat to you, you don't kill those people. We're supposed to be better than this. But by the way, we shouldn't even be attacking the boat in the beginning. Yet we still are. And he's happy about it. You hear him talk. Yeah, he's very happy. He's pleased about this. Again, I don't know the scruples of Pete Hegseth, but again, wrote a book on this. Has no idea what the international law is on confiscating drugs off a alleged drug boat. Again, you see every article. Everything's alleged. Everything's alleged. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. I can't even believe we're talking about this, but this is the world we live in now, apparently. Oh, by the way, this is in Breitbart. It says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will now sit down with President Trump in Florida today as the next stage of the fragile Gaza truce plan readies to unfold, and Iran issues a dire warning to the United States, Israel, and Europe of war. Didn't I tell you we're going to go to war with Iran for Israel? I told you this. Everyone's like, no, that's not going to. Oh, really? It's heating up right now. You're already seeing this happen. It never gets any better, does it, folks? Never. Never, ever. By the way, to date, just so we're all clear on this so-called ceasefire, I don't call it a ceasefire. We're still seeing conflict breaking out inside Gaza as we speak. But to date, since this alleged ceasefire happened back in October, or I guess so-called ceasefire, there have been 411 different Palestinians have been killed and another 1,112 injured. Remember, this is during a ceasefire, folks. We still have people dying by gunfire, shellings, airstrikes, house demolitions, and attacks on residential areas during a ceasefire. So each day this ceasefire has been broken. Still in phase 1, by the way. I don't know when phase 2 is supposed to start. But Netanyahu is meeting with Trump today about advancing the plan for what? For what? That's a big question. For what? Trump's allowed this to happen too. No one's done a damn thing about this. There's been no peace process. There's no one overseeing the peace in the region. And again, not a word from Trump on this. Not a word from J.D. Vance. Or the great Mike Huckabee, right? Mike Huckabee will do anything for Israel. Forget the mainstream media. By the way, zero consequences to this slaughter that's continuing on. Right now, it's estimated there's over 72,500 deaths of Gazans, by the way, just so we're all clear on that. Again, what should be said to Netanyahu today? And again, his cronies. If these reports of the killings of Palestinians continue under my peace plan, you'll lose your $3.8 billion we give you each year. This goes for Gaza and the West Bank. Stop this behavior right now. Why isn't that being said to Netanyahu today? One can only wonder, right? So again, some of you will argue that, Israel is a sovereign nation, of course. Fine. Do without our money then. It's evident this ceasefire was never honored. Do without our money then. If you want to continue this fight, go ahead. It's not going to be with our money. By the way, for those of you that say to, Israel, they're just defending themselves at this point, again, it falls on deaf ears, of course. No one's buying this nonsense anymore. But as of late, I'll read this to you as well. They have an Israeli defense minister, Israel Katz, who got a little brazen recently. And he actually went out and said this, just out loud, very brazenly. Says, Israel will never fully withdraw from Gaza. And then in addendum to that, he said, they, meaning Israel, will build settlements in Gaza. Bezalel Smotrich, another one of their ministers, made a similar statement this year when he said that all of Gaza will become Jewish. Netanyahu has made comments along with Itamar Ben-Gvir, Danny Danon, again, all repudiating President Trump's 21-point plan. None of them are following it. None of them are even acknowledging it. Again, the fact that Israel is behind, some yellow line, this unknown yellow line in the sand here, while still occupying Gaza is a violation of the Geneva Convention, Article 424. I'm sorry, 242. Excuse me. A little dyslexic today, I guess. Too much eggnog. Again, which says in plain writing, the withdrawal of Israeli armed forces from occupied territories and respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states involved. In other words, get along with your neighbors, folks. It outlines the need for peace, but, ask Lebanon, ask Syria, ask Gaza, Iraq, Qatar, Yemen, Iran. Do they feel any peace? What do they feel coming out of this region? That's a big question, but then again, we see the opposite. In the Golan Heights, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and in Gaza, they all want this land for the Greater Israel Project. Again, don't take my word for it. Listen to Netanyahu's speech at the UN General Assembly meeting on September 22nd, 2023, right before the October 7th attack in Israel. Listen to what he says. Look at the map that he shows. This isn't people just conspiring and making this up. He's actually saying this. Again, since the ceasefire, you'll notice that it's been quiet across the board, though, right? We're in a ceasefire after all. Again, this benefits Israel greatly. We're not focusing on what's happening in Gaza anymore. Some people are, and I give them credit for that. They're talking about, obviously, the famine that they're experiencing inside Gaza. The lack of supplies going into Gaza still. By the way, that's a violation of the peace agreement as well. You see TikTok being bought by Larry Ellison, a close friend of Benjamin Netanyahu's, has personally bankrolled tens of millions into the IDF as well. Fine, it's his money. Let him do whatever he wants with it. What the hell do I care? I have no issue with that. But do we expect TikTok to follow the idea of free speech or algorithms to share with the American people when support for Israel is dying? Netanyahu mentioned this last time he was here. The last time he graced us with his presence, right? He said the important issue right now is TikTok. Taking to social media. Talking to these influencers that are, Israel firsters. That's what they are. Like, they have to change the American public perception of Israel right now, because right now it's not good. Did you see, too, by the way, this is another off topic, but did you see Netanyahu actually prevented an investigation into the events of October 7th? Look at this. It says he will now serve as the chair of this government probe and the special inquiry looking into October 7th. Right, the day that it resulted in 1,200 people dead, and the 250 people taken hostage. And he's getting a lot of pushback, a lot of blowback from the Israeli citizens, especially the families of those that have been killed, opposition parties, and, of course, security officials alike. They're all miffed about this, moved by Netanyahu to essentially investigate himself. Really, that's what it comes down to. He's going to be investigating himself and his government on that day, which, again, many people feel prevents total accountability. And the big question is, the big question I have, how did the IDF stand down for 6 hours? How did that happen? How does that happen when your country's under attack? How was there no intelligence that this was going to happen? Wasn't intelligence flowing through other governments saying this could happen? Yet nothing was done about it. And by the way, was the Hannibal elective or option, whatever you want to call it, right? That's when they will fire on their own people, so there's no hostages going into Gaza. Was that used that day? We need answers to this. Was it just Hamas killing people that day? Did the IDF actually murder people that day? Again, I can point to evidence of Israeli helicopters, firebombing places, shooting into buildings and what have you. But we should have answers to this. Did the IDF actually kill people that day too? Or was it simply Hamas, as what we're told? Will we ever get those answers? Of course we're not going to get those answers, folks. He's not going to let that come out in the open. That would just completely kill any type of support for Israel if that was the case. Absolutely. Again, just to be clear, though, just to be clear on all this whole Cuttergate scandal, too, that he's in right now, things are not good for Netanyahu right now. He needs President Trump's support, of course. He needs his backing. That's why he's there. It's his, fifth visit to the U.S. to meet with Trump. Two of his closest aides, by the way, they've been arrested for allegedly performing this clandestine acts of working with the Qatari government, again, to promote Qatar's interest inside Israel. And in return, they've received money and benefits and such from that. Jonathan Urich and Eli Feldstein were both arrested for lobbying for Qatar. Again, if this is true, by the way, this is very damning because Qatar's connection to Hamas, and it's alleged that Netanyahu took a cut of the money that he allowed to enter into Gaza as well. All this looks very, very bad, folks. This goes beyond just his judicial review that he's working to achieve, by the way. Take more power away from the judiciary inside Israel, and of course, give more power to himself. And again, this raises concerns of national security risks, Qatar's influence on Israel, the political corruption that goes along with it. So, Netanyahu's in a bind right now. He's experiencing very low approval ratings among the population. Some polls list him as 30%, others list him at 40%. And you add that along with the U.S. approval of Israel declining as well, and even Newsweek has come out and said this. So again, things are not looking good for Netanyahu right now, or really the state of Israel as a whole right now. Again, without our support, they wouldn't even function as, they would have a functioning military. We fund their entire military. We pay their government pensions. It's unbelievable what we pay for, by the way. But this is where we are, folks. All right, one more article for the day before we end our segment today, last segment. I got one here that I want to spend more time on. I'm going to go over this tomorrow with you, because this one I really want to jump into. It's about digital ID and infrastructure and global expansion of that in both Europe and Canada. We'll talk about that. That's important, because so goes that. A lot of this is going to be coming to the United States, of course. But I saw this in the New York Post over the weekend. I had to laugh at this. We can't even enjoy Christmas without it being called a, racist holiday, of course. It says their Christmas classic, It's a Wonderful Life, right? The one with Jimmy Stewart, right? Is racist. A woke Canadian college professor claims. Oh my goodness, you can't make this stuff up, folks. I mean, this movie came out in 1946. Anyways, it says that the beloved Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life, has secret racial and bigoted messages, according to a woke college professor who insists that the fictional town of Bedford Falls is too white. I want you to stop and think about that for a second. It's too white. Bedford Falls, this made-up place, is too white. Needs more color, right? Now, just to be clear, just so we're all on the same page with all this, and maybe this Duns professor, this James DeVille, who teaches music, by the way, at Carleton University in Canada, maybe he doesn't know this, maybe he doesn't take a history lesson. Between 1940's census and the 1950 census, the country was at least 90% white in America. Just so we're all clear on that. So how do you become, I don't know. Were there no white majority cities at the time? Clearly there were. But that's not good enough for Mr. DeVille. He needs to have more people of different races involved in this, right? Otherwise you're, racist, bigoted, obviously a white supremacist, right? Jimmy Stewart, obviously, right? It's unbelievable. You can't enjoy a Christmas movie from almost 80 years ago without being told it's not pleading to the minorities enough. Well, hey, Putz, watch another movie. You don't have to watch It's a Wonderful Life. But they want to change the demographics of the country, even back in the day when it was, again, overwhelmingly white. And again, a fictional town, it's not even a real place. But that would be a representation of America, would it not? In 1946? The country was mostly a white European country. That's just a fact. Can't change that. At least 90% of the country was white Europeans. But that's not good enough for people in 2025 who hate the country, hate their own race. But the lefty lecturer whined to the New York Post, of course, said, listen and pay attention to the sounds of the movie, and that's where the racism lies, in the music. So the music is racist. The music is racist, don't you know? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it has to be racist, right? The beloved movie star Jimmy Stewart, known as George Bailey, a man who plans to commit suicide on Christmas Eve. His guardian angel, Clarence, right, intervenes by showing George what Bedford Falls would look like if he had lived there once in this fake town in a made-up movie, right? Well, he said the music in Pottersville was boogie-woogie and jazz, a black-type style of music. But when they get to Bedford Falls, this fictional place that doesn't really exist, maybe he thinks this is a biography. Maybe that's the problem here. He thinks it's a real place. Maybe that's what he thinks is being depicted here. I don't know. He said the song George and his wife Mary sing to each other is called Buffalo Gals, a white traditional standard, he said. Oh, okay. All right. Well, whatever. He also gripped that Bedford Falls is populated mostly by whites, apart from a black housekeeper. And Frank Capra, who's been dead for God knows how long, the film's producer and director, as a racist. Oh, okay. So again, I say to you, the listener, it's a movie. It's a made-up film. It's not depicted in any reality, right? It's just a made-up movie in a country that was a vast majority white country at the time. 90%. 90%, folks. But yet, it's not good enough for these people. They want to tear everything down. That's how it works, folks. Doesn't it? It always does. Nothing's ever good enough for them, too, anyways. Nothing. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in again. I appreciate you being here. I hope you learned something new. Hope you'll share the information, even though we're on this Christmas break right now. Don't forget, make changes in your own life. Changes in your own household, with your family. Make sure you're always staying prepped, as always. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow on the next Marco Dre Show with more groundbreaking news. Till then, be good, stay busy. God bless.